Welcome. Welcome, everybody. I'm grateful that you're here, and I'm grateful to be here today. I'm in Lake Balboa, California, and the name of my talk today is What's Your Gospel Gonna Be? What's your gospel gonna be? Living in bondage or free? What's your gospel gonna be? Yeah, I gotta write a new one for me. Blaming those who knocked me down, I'll give them thanks for being around. Stuck in stories I have told, I'm letting go of the old. What's your gospel gonna be? Living in bondage or free? What's your gospel gonna be? Yeah. Gotta write a new one for me. Blessing moments of my shame, making dust out of my pain, calling waters I have stormed, a walk where love has been born. What's your gospel gonna be? Living in bondage or free? Come on, y'all. What's your gospel gonna be? Yeah, I gotta write a new one for me. Love my neighbor as myself. Rush right in when you cry for help. Give my gift and share my wealth. Am I willing to forgive myself? Come on, y'all. What's your gospel gonna be? Living in bondage or free? What's your gospel gonna be? Gotta write a new one for me. Oh yeah, what's your gospel gonna be? Living in bondage or free? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. What's your gospel gonna be? Yeah. I gotta write a new one for me. I gotta write a new one for me. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. What's your gospel gonna be? Thank you. I can hear all your butterfly hands waving. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you all for being here today. I'm grateful to be here today. Thank you for allowing me to celebrate your journey of awakening. Thank you, Reverend Janice, for asking me. 7 months later, we worked it out. I'm glad I could be here. I just drove through Arizona recently on a trip to Michigan, and it's a beautiful state. It's pretty magnificent, pretty magnificent. So what's your gospel going to be? What's my gospel going to be? You know, it's a Floyd Lula song. I wrote it with my songwriting partner, Gary Lynn Floyd. For those of you who have never heard of Gary Lynn Floyd, please look him up, and look up Floyd Lula on iTunes and Spotify and all that. What's your gospel going to be? What's interesting and fascinating to me in the context of perhaps what most of us have grown up with us, I'm assuming that a good majority of us have grown up with a Christian background. So whether we read the Bible or the Torah, if we grew up Jewish, or the Bhagavad Gita or whatever, they're a collection of allegories. There are collections of stories And we've taken and we've framed the people in the Bible. You know, I did a talk a while ago about Jesus, and having grown up a Catholic, being an altar boy, wanting to be a priest when I was a kid, I realized that I was never going to achieve Jesushood, if you will. I was never going to attain that magnificence that was told to me throughout my youth. I was born of original sin. I was born of original sin, and I was going to die a sinner. Anybody else get that? Show of hands. Yeah. And the truth of the matter is I was born of original love. I was born of original love. And that's what I'm holding. It's something that my wife in our prayer partnership that I came into in our discussions. I wasn't born of original sin. I was born of original love. But the gospel that I'm working on for my life is not necessarily a pretty road. I'm recovering. I'm in multiple 12-step programs. As I understand it, you've got a very enlightened community where no one's had that experience. No one's ever had a drink or smoked a joint or had sex inappropriately. That's just your community. It's the only one in CSL, by the way, that I've heard of that has that kind of track record. So I'm kind of preaching to the choir. I've fallen down a lot in my life. And what I realize, and what I look at, is when we look at Saul, who became Paul, he came from a track record of kind of being a wretch. So my gospel, my personal gospel, has the life that I've lived in it. And I don't want to create a mythic life out of my life in the gospel that I create. I want to show how I've fallen down and how I've gotten back up. How I've stood in the face of childhood sexual abuse. And then, like 30 years before it came up, and I recognized that this has happened to me and how profoundly it affected me and my life and my sexuality. And probably the fact that I drank and I used drugs from the time I was about 12 years old. The fact that I used that was probably a saving grace in my life. That while I can perceive those things in my life as negative and bad, and I went down the wrong road, and I did this and did that, what I can realize is the blessing, because it probably kept me alive because I didn't know how to be with that energy of what had happened to me as a little boy from the time I was 4 until I was 6, and then again around 11 years old, and all the while being perpetrated by someone that I should have felt safe with. It was an uncle. And what I'm aware of is that's not the truth of who I am. That's what's happened to me in my life. Then the choices that I made in my life were things that I did, but it doesn't define me. It doesn't define me in the way that God sees me, in the way the infinite presence of love. I, once again, grew up in the Catholic culture where God was out there, that I had to go through a mediator through confession to confess my sins in order to get God's forgiveness. And what I realize today is that I don't need a mediator. I need to do it in my own heart. I've got a master's in spiritual psychology from the University of Santa Monica, and one of the things that we studied about the idea of forgiveness is the only person that I need to forgive is me. I forgive myself for judging myself as, I forgive myself for judging you as, fill in the blanks. It's a lot longer discussion, and it's a different talk, but it was a very powerful tool to realize that I'm the mediator that I need to go through to forgive those perceptions of myself. The way that I got skewed the way that my mind and my thoughts and my perceptions of myself became skewed based on what I was raised with, based on the culture, that I learned. And quite honestly, in Catholic Church, it wasn't like we were Bible aficionados. It was like they read from the Bible, they read from the different books of the New Testament growing up, but we didn't study the Bible like a lot of Christians. But we also didn't study meditation. And the prayer was always out there to something. It was a guy on a cloud with a big long beard with a chalkboard that was completely white because of my sins, because of my thoughts, because of my deeds. And it kept me in that place of, I'm just never going to be enough. Never going to be enough. I'm not enough. Until 1994, well, actually earlier than that. I got sober first in 1991, and then again in 1993, a couple weeks after my father passed. And then I got to Agape, and I heard Michael Beckwith speak. I don't know how many of you have heard Michael Beckwith speak. He's continued to grow ever since then. And I heard him speaking about something that I learned in my late teens, really in a really high point of getting high and getting loaded. I had a download one day coming down off of something, and this is what came through me. And I couldn't understand it at the moment. It actually took another 15 years for me to understand it. But what came through me this morning when I was coming down off of something was, God's not out there. God's within me. And we're not right, and they're not wrong. And it was literally like hearing a voice that I caught this, because I remember kind of looking around and just thinking, what was that? Because I was not hanging out with metaphysicians. My heroes in life growing up knew how to drink and go to work the next day. They knew how to score dope, and they knew how to get laid. That was Mecca from the culture that I grew up in. So when I heard this voice, I didn't understand it, but it stuck with me. And it wasn't until I got to Agape that I recognized that divine intervention that had happened to me. And it's not made up. It's not allegorical. It literally was a download from that infinite presence that wanted me to just continue on that spiritual path. I didn't become a priest. I didn't become a minister per se, but I allowed my music to become my ministry. I allowed my music to become my ministry. I began to understand through the teachings of the science of mind, through Ernest Holmes, through Emmett Fox, through Michael Beckwith, through Mary Morrissey, and through all these other teachers, through Marianne Williamson, I began to recognize the infinite presence of God within me, that I'm a part of that infinite presence, that it's not outside me, that it's within me, and it's within me, and I have the opportunity to call upon it. I have the opportunity to call upon it on a daily basis. So how does my gospel begin to grow in that context over the last it'll be 30 years in 2024 that I've been part of this teaching, part of this movement. And it's taken every moment of that and every moment that I'm at right now to get to this point. So, what is the gospel that you believe in for your life? What is the gospel that you're holding for your life? Do you feel worthy of your own gospel? Do you feel that there's a gospel of your life based on your past and your present and your consciousness and understanding the truth and the infinite nature of your being? What's the gospel of your life? What's the gospel of your life that wants to be represented through you from where you are right now, not from where you've been, not from what's happened to you, to not what you have done to others or to yourself, but from where you are right now? What is the gospel that is calling you to be revealed in life today. We all go out and we do our deeds. We go out and we are of service in our communities. We're all of service and we're of service in our communities. We're of service to our spouses, to our partners, to our children. How can we take and create the gospel of our dreams? How can we affirm something different than where we've come from and our perceptions of ourselves and move into that perception that God has of us? To articulate that. And it may not be physically writing it down, but we can live that gospel. I can live that gospel. I wanted to be a minister for a really long time. I started prac training at Agape. And I love these teachings. And I love my community. But what I realized was I'm living my ministry through my music. In 1998, my wife and I actually started dating. She had graduated from University of Santa Monica with a master's in spiritual psychology, and then the next year, she graduated from prac training at Agape, and so that was, I guess, 97 that she graduated from Agape in prac training, and then I went to USM, and they call it soul-centered education. It was a fabulous education and 2 years of studying self. And it's the time that this sexual abuse began coming up and really coming to the forefront of my mind and the awakening to it. My gospel began to change then. I'd spent a good portion of my 20s and 30s wanting to die because I didn't understand what was going on. And when I began to understand what was going on inside me, what I recognized was there was an aspect of myself that did need to die, but the totality of me didn't. The old ideas and perceptions of myself needed to die. Now, having gone through almost 40 years of that being imprinted on my consciousness, it's a daily practice. It's a daily practice. It's a daily practice of stillness and affirmative prayer, spiritual mind treatment, if you will, to change my mind, to change my thoughts, and to change my perceptions, to recognize that infinite presence of God within myself, and to be willing to have that dialogue with that aspect of myself. So what I'm curious about for you today is, what is the gospel that you want to leave with today? Is it a gospel of joy? Is it a gospel of being a blessing? Is it a gospel of service? Is it a gospel of love? Lord knows we need some love right now. You know, I heard someone when I came in said, "Oh, can I give you a virtual hug?" And you're like, "Oh, yes, please give me a virtual hug." I think we all need a big hug. We all need a tremendous breath, and we all need a big hug after everything that we've gone through these past number of months in quarantine. But what I want to ask once again is, what is the gospel that you want to leave with today? Even if it's just a spark or a word or a phrase or something that you've been telling yourself to change your mind. What is the gospel that you want to leave with and begin working on from where you are right now? I have a couple affirmations that I just want to read out loud, and I'm just going to ask you if you'd consider saying them out loud with me. You don't have to unmute, but if you would repeat after me. I am perfect, whole, and complete, just as I am and just as I am not. I am perfect, whole, and complete, just as I am and just as I am not. I am blessed and a blessing to all I meet today and every day henceforth. I am blessed and a blessing to all I meet today and every day henceforth. I am a willing participant in God's unfoldment as my life. I am a willing participant in God's unfoldment as my life. And then I want you to consider, I am available. I am available. I am joy. I am peace. I am better than I was before. I love that quote. I actually wrote a song, I am better than I was before. I'm going to do it in a little bit. But it's something that Wayne Dyer said. I heard Wayne Dyer said, it's like, just remember, you're better than you were before. And I'm better than I was before. And it's not to say that I am not without the continuance of falling down and making mistakes. I got really pissed last night when the Dodgers lost in the 9th inning. I'm like, really? Really? It was a comedy of errors. And I just kind of lost my caca a little bit. And my friends are going, it's just a game. I'm like, really? Come on. The Dodgers for the last 7 years. It's like, come on, guys. With my son. I have an 18-year-old son. He's a filmmaker. He is I know, like most of us that are parents, it's like, he's a brilliant filmmaker. He really is very talented. Yet he doesn't clean his room. He's not brilliant at cleaning his room. And I know that none of you have children that don't know how to clean their room. When I took off and went back to Michigan, he and 4 of his filmmaking friends stayed here at the house. And my wife, I said, well, how was the house when you got back to it? Because she went and stayed at her best friend's house in the hills, and I drove back to Michigan. And she said, oh my God, it was a mess. And she goes, and you know what? The girls were even worse than the boys, because the girls stayed in our room. But I recognize, I see him. I see him. I see him. I see him so much more than I was able to see myself at that age. And I want us to see one another, because the next step in the context of this gospel that we're writing for ourselves, are we writing it in pen? Are we writing it in pencil? Are we writing it in the sand? How do we want to document this? And what's the legacy that we want to leave behind? One of the quotes from The Science of Mind, I'm not a big fan of reading quotes when I do talks and stuff like that. But I love this quote. It's the Science of Mind, and the 365, the readings that Edward Viljoen put together on my birthday. The reading is fabulous. It starts at the bottom. It's called No Failures. It starts at the bottom of page 302, and it goes through the 3rd paragraph in page 305. I love this. I'm just going to read a couple things from it. If one appears to have failed, he or she, got to change that, gender fluid. If one appears to have failed, he should realize that there are no failures in the universe. He should completely erase the idea of failure by stating that there are no failures. If one believes that he failed last year, he will likely to fail again this year unless the false thought is erased. Break down everything except the recognition of the one perfect power, which is not contingent upon any place, person, condition, time of year, or anything but itself. And then down a couple paragraphs, it says, so we erase the old idea of failure. Now here is where it looks like if one were not telling the truth to himself, but he is declaring the truth about the Spirit that indwells him. This Spirit never fails. There's more to this reading. I strongly recommend it. That 365, just have a little bit of reading, because reading more than 2 pages of Ernest Holmes it's like I need a drink, and I haven't had one in about 27 years. This Spirit never fails. We've never failed. Yes, we've fallen short, and I'm sure that many of us in the context of this congregation maybe we've done some egregious things. It's not the truth of who we are. It's not the truth of who we are. This Spirit never fails. So in this context, what I want to look at in this context is, what's our gospel going to be? So as we look at the past, we hold it in consciousness, we hold it in prayer, we forgive ourselves for the judgment that we have of ourselves and others, and we slowly but surely release it, recognizing that infinite presence of love, of God, of the universe, of Spirit, indwelling us and wanting only to express more of itself as our life. We affirm our life. We begin to write our own gospel, whether we physically write it down or whether it's just about changing our thoughts and our perceptions of ourselves. As we forgive ourselves, we perhaps become a little less judgmental of ourselves. And when we become a little less judgmental of ourselves, we become a little less judgmental of others. And we just recognize that if our spirit never fails, no one's spirit ever fails, no matter how we behave. But in that context, as we begin to write our individual gospel, we start to recognize, what is our gospel going to be? For the Center for Spiritual Living Tucson, or Tucson Center for Spiritual Living, I'm not quite certain how you say it. What is the gospel that we're writing for this community? That Reverend Janice is heading up and holding the space, and the practitioner corps, and all the congregants, and all the children. What's the gospel that we're writing for the Center for Spiritual Living Tucson? What's the legacy that we want to leave for this next generation? And what is the gospel for the Center for Spiritual Living Tucson, and the legacy that we want to leave? And how is it affecting the greater Tucson community? And how and what are we planning on leaving behind? What's the legacy that we want to leave behind? Because for many of us that are perhaps coming out of philosophies that have perhaps been a little abusive, that don't see the truth of us, that we only if we live up to their expectations, which in my perception, I was never going to live up to the expectations that were set before me. But now we are in a faith and a teaching that sees us before we see ourselves. So how do we want to participate in the greater gospel of this Center for Spiritual Living Tucson, to allow it to continue to grow and expand and unfold in the light and as the light that it is, that it's here to be? This philosophy and these teachings, I often would say I did music for the teens from 1998 through 2010. Did national camps and regional camps. And what I used to tell my teens was, it's not for me to tell you that this is the way and the only way. I think it's important for us to go out and do our homework and find out that particular philosophy that resonates with our life, that allows us to live our highest life, to live our fullest life, to be in communion and to be in relationship with an infinite Spirit of love, to pray from where we can, not from where we can't, to see the best in others, and to honor other people the way that they celebrate life, celebrate love, celebrate God, and suspend judgment of their process. I think that we could all, this teaching, embracing all of the different traditions, sometimes the lighting of the candles for all the different faiths. I don't know if you do that at CSL Tucson or not, but just recognizing there's truth in them all. There's truth in them all. So what's the gospel that we want to create and look at from where we come? Forgive ourselves for the judgment of ourselves or others. Writing our own gospel and coming into alignment with that perception and that truth that God only wants to express more of itself as each of our life, however grand or however small. And then how do we want to take that gospel and create the gospel for this community? It's just a thought. It's just an idea. I think I really want to acknowledge Reverend Janice as a minister, having traveled around the world, witnessing various ministries, from Agape to Mile High to England, to Germany, to Japan. Being a minister is no small feat. But in writing our gospel, I think we all become the ministers that we are here to be, because we minister to one another. We minister by living the gospel that we came here to express and reveal and live and love. And as I'm sure that you can all agree, we all need some love right now. The country needs some love right now. The world needs some love like real true, not real true love and tolerance, real true forgiveness and compassion as we move through this. It's so interesting that I'm honored with the opportunity to share with you so close to the election. And this is not a political statement. It's just like we need to hold for one another, hold the space for one another. I know that I'm trusting that everybody in the community is either voted already or going out to vote, but creating a safe space for everybody to vote and creating that safe space that I believe that this country represents. It's a safe space for us to be and to express. And we are a country based on religious freedom. We're a country based on religious freedom. So we stand in that and we honor one another. So what's your gospel going to be? What's the gospel that you're leaving with today? Whether you've taken notes or you just thought about it, or maybe you set a bedtime intention before you go to sleep, just ask yourself, what's my gospel going to be? What's the gospel? What's the word of Marcia and Greg? What's the gospel of Reverend Holland? What's the gospel of David? What's the gospel of Madeline or Maria, Alexandria? I'm not going to go through all the names, but what's your gospel going to be? What is your gospel going to be? So I'm going to sing 2 songs to close this out. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the love that we seek. We are the seeds we are sowing. We are the harvest we reap. Oh, we are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the love that we seek. We are the seeds we are sowing. We are the harvest we reap. Oh, I am that I am. Oh, I am that I am. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the love that we seek. We are the seeds we are sowing. We are the harvest we reap. Sing, I am. Oh, I am that I am. Oh, I am that I am. I am. Oh, I am that I am. Oh, I am that I am. We are the ones we've we've been waiting for. We are the love that we seek. We are the seeds we are sowing. We are the harvest we reap. One more time, come on. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the love that we seek. We are the seeds we are sowing. We are the harvest we reap. We are the harvest. We are the harvest we reap. One more time. We are the harvest we reap. Woo! Thought I was mistakes that I'd made. Thought that I had done it wrong. Thought I'd never make a difference. Thought I wasn't worth a song. When I think I can't, I haven't what I think I will become. How I hold myself in reverence. Where I end up, I belong. 'Cause I'm better than I was before. I'm better 'cause I've walked through walls and doors. I'm better 'cause I'm falling down. I'm better than before. And I'm glad I stuck around. Glad I stuck around. Thoughts are things I'm in control of. Thoughts can't turn my head around. Thought I'd break this to you easy. It's not harder than it sounds. When I think I can't, I haven't what I think I will become. How I hold myself in reverence. Where I end up, I belong. 'Cause I'm better than I was before. I'm better 'cause I've walked through walls and doors. I'm better 'cause I'm falling down. I'm better than before. And I'm glad I stuck around. Oh, my rationale ended all. Tempted to give up. Mindless mediocrity or judgment of my junk. Felt abandoned, it was a lie. I had to change my thoughts. And urgency grew deep and free. A kinder, sweeter love. 'Cause I'm better than I was before. Better 'cause I walked through walls and doors. Better 'cause I'm falling down. I'm better than before. And I'm glad I stuck around. Better than you were before. Better 'cause you walked through walls and doors. Better 'cause you've fallen down. You're better than before. And I'm glad you stuck around. I'm glad we stuck around. And so we just close our eyes and we just take a deep breath. Mother, Father, God, infinite spirit of life, the allness, the isness, the perfect peace, passing human understanding. I'm grateful for the conscious realization of truth, that right where I am and right where this sacred community of Center for Spiritual Living Tucson is, and every congregant present or not, I know that right where we are, you are, wanting nothing more than to express the fullness of your spirit as our lives. So we steep in that awareness that we're either writing or we're rewriting the gospel of our lives. And we're leaving behind a legacy. We're leaving behind a legacy of love. We're leaving words of encouragement to those who follow us and upon whose shoulders we stand and upon whose shoulders they will stand. Knowing that we came together in a place of love, from a place of love, from a place of peace. I know that we are blessed. I know that we go forward this week and we are blessed everywhere we go, no matter what. And that all who we come in contact with are blessed by our presence, by our loving. As the old song that I learned in second grade, they'll know we are Christians by our love. They'll know that we are spiritual practitioners. They will know our gospels by our love. Because we lead with our love. We lead with our compassion. We lead with our joy. We hold the highest and best for this sacred community. We are grateful for everybody that came to join in the communion of love that we are sharing today. We are blessed, pressed down, and overflowing with the infinite presence of the divine Spirit of love of God. And I'm just grateful to hold this space, to be this space, and to know this space for everybody in this sacred circle, on this hallowed ground. For this and so much more, I just give great and abiding thanks. I give thanks to Reverend Janice for her leadership. I give thanks to the board. I give thanks to the practitioners. I give thanks to all the congregation. I give thanks because I'm grateful. Why am I grateful? Because I'm rewriting my gospel. And we're rewriting the gospel of this sacred center. We're writing it. We're living it. We're expressing it. We're revealing it. And doing all that God would have us be, just by being that love and that presence. For this and so much more, I give thanks. I release it unto the law. I know that it is done now for the highest good of all concerned. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. And we all join together in saying, and so it is. Amen. Ashe.